A snitch within Mexico's largest cartel explains that they hired a hacker to break into an FBI agent's phone. Also in your hacking news roundup, Russian government hackers unveil a new phishing technique, leaking military secrets to China is a bad idea, and there's something you need to protect your boomers from. But first, cartels are hiring hackers now, apparently. This news comes in the form of a heavily redacted report from the FBI. The report explains how the Sinaloa cartel, the largest cartel in Mexico, hired a hacker to target an FBI agent. This hacker apparently offered the cartel a whole menu of services relating to exploiting mobile phones and other electronic devices. The Sinaloa cartel hired the hacker to surveil people going in and out of the US Embassy in Mexico City, identifying people of interest, which included a certain FBI agent. After obtaining the phone number of the agent, the hacker somehow grabs details of calls they made and received, as well as the agent's geolocation data. The report doesn't say how this was done, but it sounds an awful lot like spyware. Mexican law enforcement agencies have been a major customer of spyware companies like NSO Group and Hacking Team, but you don't have to look far to find cases of corruption, leading to those tools landing in the hands of cartels. But they typically only use spyware to go after journalists and activists. This is the only case we know about of them targeting an FBI agent. The report goes on to explain how this hacker then used Mexico City's camera system to follow the FBI agent through the city. Now, Mexico City has one hell of a surveillance system, with 80,000 CCTV cameras all controlled centrally. It's possible that this is the system that the hacker gained access to, though whether that was through an actual breach of the system or just an unhealthy dose of corruption, we don't know. Either way, the cartel used the camera system to identify people that the FBI agents met with, and then proceeded to intimidate or in some instances kill potential sources or cooperating witnesses. And the FBI only knows about all this activity thanks to a snitch within the cartel who reached out to them. This all comes from a report into the FBI's efforts to mitigate the effects of ubiquitous technical surveillance. A lot of words there, but ubiquitous surveillance just refers to the collection of data that we all emit on a daily basis just by existing and going about our day in this digital world we find ourselves living in. The examples we've looked at are tagged as electronic signals and visual and physical. There are many other examples of surveillance that the FBI has fallen victim to, but pretty much all of that is redacted. Next up, a well-known British expert on Russia has been targeted with a sophisticated and never-seen-before phishing tactic courtesy of Russian state-backed hackers. Kia Giles received an email from someone impersonating the senior program advisor at the US Department of State, inviting him to an online meeting and asking if he was available on a certain date. Red flag number one, and this is a big one, was that this email came from a Gmail address. However, the hackers CC'd in several people with legit state.gov email addresses. Now, hackers typically don't CC the feds into their evil plans, so this will have done a very good job in making their email seem legit. However, these state.gov email addresses don't exist, and the state.gov email servers are configured not to send delivery failure notifications when emails are sent to invalid addresses, something that our hackers will no doubt have been well aware of. Kia took the bait, but responded saying that that date and time just wouldn't work for him. The hackers replied saying they'd explore alternative dates, but in the meantime invited him to join their secure video conferencing platform. They sent him a PDF with instructions, and it looks pretty legit. We've got a classification status, a version number and date. Even the way this text is formatted with the first letter of each word in bold and a slightly larger font is exactly what you'd find on real documents. The PDF goes on to explain that following the instructions will give you access to the Department of State's secure communication via Microsoft Teams and Zoom. However, it says that their system doesn't support sign-in with Google due to security restrictions, but that there is a way around this. The solution involves generating an app-specific password using Google's App Passwords feature. Now, app passwords are a little-known feature that allow you to use your Google account with old legacy software which doesn't support sign-in with Google and multi-factor authentication. App passwords can be generated in your Google account settings, giving you one of these 16-digit codes, but this is incredibly dangerous because this code can be used to gain direct access to your account, bypassing your usual password and any multi-factor authentication you might have set up. But these dangers aren't very well known about, so when the PDF asked him to just email over the code, he complied, giving the Russian hackers complete access to his Google account. After realizing his mistake, he enlisted the help of Citizen Lab and Google's threat intelligence group to investigate, and publicly responded to the hack, saying, "The fact that Russian threat actors have put such enormous effort into trying to read my mail and apparently blown an entirely new and unsuspected method of doing so in the process is a compliment and an endorsement that I am doing the right thing." Next up, a former US Army sergeant has pleaded guilty to attempting to share military secrets with China, though not very successfully, it would seem. Joseph Daniel Schmitz was in the 109th Military Intelligence Battalion, assigned to a human intelligence squad. Along with the job came a top-secret security clearance. But Joseph eventually left the military in 2020, and almost immediately he began Google searching about defection, searching for countries that don't extradite, and which countries have the most negative relations with the US. Eventually he settled on China, and Googled, "What is China's intelligence agency?" At the time of all of this, he happened to be in Turkey, so he Googled the Chinese embassy in Istanbul and sent a message to their public-facing email address. He was pretty open about who he was, that he had a top-secret security clearance and wanted to share information with the Chinese government. OPSEC mistake number one was that the Gmail address he used to send this email was the same one that the US Army had on file for him. He then created a Word document titled "Important Information to Share with the Chinese Government," filling it with classified information, and saved it to his iCloud account, again registered to that same email. If sharing military secrets wasn't enough, he also reached out to several Chinese state media organizations, offering to share some of his military stories from his years he spent in the army. As for his motive behind all of this, an email he sent to his sister gives us some idea, and he wasn't after money, saying, "I learned some really terrible things about the American government whilst I was working in the army, and I no longer feel safe living in America or like I want to support the American government." Now, whatever those awful things he learnt about the American government were, China seems like an odd pivot. But it sounds like the guy was a bit of a Chinaboo. He had previously studied Mandarin, and years before he decided to defect, he had travelled to China on several occasions, stating on his Chinese visa form that he wanted to learn as much about Chinese culture and history as possible. He was so motivated to leak US military secrets to China that just a couple months after leaving the army, he flew there, with screenshots recovered from his phone showing that he looked up Google Maps directions for how to get from the airport to China's Ministry of State Security. However, the amusing thing is, it doesn't seem like he was very successful in any of this. Over the course of several months, he researched and emailed 2 more Chinese state-owned companies, offering them his Cyber token so that they could reverse engineer it. This thing is a smart card used for logging into CyberNet, a private network used by the US Department of Defense. But in each of his emails, he introduces himself from the beginning, so it doesn't look like anyone he reached out to even took him seriously and set him up with some kind of government contact. In fact, Chinese immigration authorities even tried to kick him out of the country, notifying him that he had been overstaying his visa and that his application for an extension was refused. They did eventually allow him to remain in Hong Kong whilst he figured out his visa, but in the end, when he hopped on his return flight to the US, he was arrested at the airport, ultimately pleading guilty, and is now facing up to 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. And next, malicious Google search ads are a common nemesis we see on this channel often, but now there's a new variant you need to protect your boomers from. Malvertising typically works by using a totally legitimate looking ad, even using the correct domain, this one being for GIMP, but clicking the ad redirects you to a fake domain hosting a copycat site which features a big red download button to infect you with malware. This has been a problem for years, but now tech support scammers are getting in on the opportunity too. They are hijacking search terms used by people looking for technical support and taking out Google ads like this. Looks legit enough, call Netflix Help Center by phone, domain checks out, let's give it a click. It does indeed take us to the Netflix Help Center, but the cyber bad guys have come up with a creative but mind-numbingly basic trick. They've injected their phone number into the search box. You're meant to be tricked that this is the genuine Netflix number and give it a call, only for some guy on the other end to try and convince you that the only way of fixing your stream is to send him $200 of Google Play gift cards. It's not just Netflix being targeted. Campaigns have been spotted exploiting Bank of America, Microsoft, HP, and Apple. These campaigns were documented by Malwarebytes, who is keen to point out that their software can detect this. The technical aspect of this trick is really quite simple. The ad sends you to a URL which has the search term baked into it, and Google is quite happy not to show the URL parameters in the ad. This trick is made all the more effective because of just how many companies nowadays hide their phone number behind some long form you've got to click through for 5 minutes before finally being given a number to call. Managing to find the number of a major tech company so easily is no doubt a welcome sight. Regardless, I'm pretty confident I wouldn't fall for something like this, but if it were my parents looking at this page, then I think it would be a very different story. And if you can relate to that, the best thing you can do for them is to take the FBI's advice and just set them up with an ad blocker. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.